Right,
Good
we're on
morning.
air. Good morning, everybody.
Good
Just going
morning.
to introduce everybody so we know where we are. So we're all together, we're having a lovely picnic, and Terry is somewhere else than me and Teresa and Marcin, and we haven't got a clue where we are, but maybe we'll be joined by Marita and Thomas, and this is a Clavier Picnic. And we don't know really what that means. That's what we're going to discover. Sorry, Terry, what are you saying?
Oh, I was just going to ask everybody's names, but you've taken care of that.
Sorry.
And I'm also reminded of the children of Harry Shearer film, The Teddy Bears Picnic. So every time I think of Clavier Picnic, I think of The Teddy Bears Picnic.
That's the song we all have to sing at some point together. That would be cool. I'm hoping Terry's hens are going to provide the eggs and we can get cooking.
We got plenty right now. Sometimes I stepped on a nest in the field the other day. We have what are called, there's chickens and then there's yard birds. And yard birds are kind of feral chickens, and they're all over the place. Crazy.
That sounds familiar. A mixed economy of caged and feral.
Yeah.
That sounds like Clavier.
Hi Terry, I'm Marcin. I think I haven't introduced myself, but I'm in Poland at the moment. That's where I live and teach.
Oh, so you're the Polish connection that Simon was speaking to last week on the road.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually, Marcin, to situate what Turkey that. Last week, I sort of forgot that I was supposed to be in Poland with you.
Oops.
It all comes out. It all comes out, Simon.
I think that tells you you're maybe doing a bit much.
No, it's not. It's all part of fun. He's being on the edge, Teresa.
Yeah, okay. There's being on the edge and teetering over the brink.
Well, I'm mainly teetering. But anyway, I was with Marcin in a conference in where was it, Marcin?
Krakow.
Krakow, right.
Yeah.
Which is a fantastic place. Terry, you must go to Krakow.
I must. I will.
Right. And in Krakow, we're having a conference, and we're talking about Clavier. And I learned something, which is you must mute the microphone when you are speaking to Keith in Florida.
I don't think that's specific to Keith. To be fair.
Keith was waiting for a picnic with the other teddy bears. And I was chatting to him, and you can hear on the recording, which is a fantastic recording, which I recommend you listen to, of Marcin giving a fantastic presentation with me met up in Krakow by chatting to Keith. You can hear on the keyboard.
Yeah, I can hear the keyboard. Yeah, that was a bit strange.
So that was Keith.
Well, that's Clavier. That's Clavier making itself heard as well. That's the voice of Clavier, the keyboard tapping away in the background.
Yeah. Completely crazy. So anyway, I don't know quite what we're going to do next. I can talk about what's going on here and whatever. I don't know. What do we do next? Marita is supposed to be coming, but I don't know where she is.
Well, aside from a lesson in looking after chickens, which actually I would be very interested in, I guess an update on what's going on in Clavier would be really good, and I'll certainly watch your video.
Right.
That's
Terry,
shared somewhere.
Is that interesting for you?
Yeah, same for me. I mean, we can always talk about what's top of mind right now, but that could be later. Okay,
Marcin, are you happy with that?
Yeah, but apart from that, I'd like to just have a chat about this teacher community that we're about to organize and how we're going to go about organizing all the tasks. I have some sort of kind of scenario in my mind, which I'd like to share with you, and I'd like you to, if possible, give me some feedback on this, whether this is what you think could happen.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what I think I'll do is I will situate Clavier for everybody, so Terry can sort of understand a bit the conversations, and then we'll perhaps talk about the teacher community, and then I'll talk about. We'll try and sort of sort it out. If you're not with what's going on, you just tell me to shut up. So, Clavier, Terry, it stands for Connected Learning and Virtual Intercultural Exchange Research. So it started, a complete accident really, with Teresa, who is in blue next to you. And Teresa, I met I met on a blog, and I wanted to set up some sort of exchange sort of network for learning languages, and Teresa was completely crazy, and she said yes.
At that stage, I was less crazy.
So then what happened was we got, after about, I don't know, an hour sort of meeting in country, we then set up a thing for how many students? 500 students? 500 students.
Yeah, we started around 3 and that 300, but it very quickly.
Right.
Yeah,
so 500 students learning French or learning English, and we basically stuck them in a space and then thought, let's see what happens next. So we did, and then we talked about that at conferences, because we have like people who do something called research and something like teaching. And so I went to a conference called Euracle, and I met Marcin. So Marcin, do you want to speak about the 20 minutes conversation we had?
Well, I think we were listening to the same talk, I think, and after that we had a conversation, and I don't know what really happened, but it turned out that we wanted to collaborate on something and meet online too, and somehow connect our classes so that students could get in touch to French students and Polish students. And I think we sort of assessed whether common sort of points of interest were, and we concocted something together. And yes, here we are. And that was 2 years ago. So so this from then it's been continuing until today.
Until today.
And I'm quite sure.
Nice knowing you, Marcin.
You know,
Oh dear.
This is the end.
Yeah,
Right.
it's all laying in a quivering heap on the floor.
Yep.
Right.
Whatever.
So so the original thing was like French in exchange for English, and then I met Marcin, and Clavier then changed into something completely different, which was English teachers in training helping our learners to learn English. So that was the next thing. I changed the meaning of Clavier, because when we started out, Teresa had a brilliant idea. Let's call it Clavier, which was Claremont and Warwick. You have to.
Virtual intercultural. I can't remember now. Yeah, it was W.
So that was the origin of that, and then we changed it, and it became something else. Because then we had, we had Poland connecting with the English, and then we had, who do we have next? We had, I can't remember now. Then we had the Spanish connecting with the English and the Polish and the Swedish, maybe? Can't remember. That was just a document. And then we had the Japanese, and now we have the people in Coventry, so there are other British people, and we have Finland, Brazil, maybe Cameroon, etc., etc. And in all of that, sort of the main objective of Clavier is to try and transform language education, in particular, learning languages, and on a wider scale to transform education so that it's a bit different. And Mark is going to speak about the teacher education community, which you were invited to, which is a sandbox for opening up to something more public. Martin.
Right, yes, I wanted to talk about it because we're actually getting closer to the date where we should be initiating some activities for teachers. The idea is that teachers, we invite university teachers, but also school teachers to participate in a community where they could share their ideas, tell their stories so that others find sort of similarities and differences in them, and they could learn from one another in a number of ways, and make personal connections. So apart from professional connections, here's an opportunity to make personal connections too. So we're going to. So the idea is to set kind of general discussions on a particular topic in every week, and get teachers to discuss them. Well, first of all, they have to get to know one another, so they will send some kind of publish their profiles in this community, so that other people could get to know them. And then we're going to set discussion topics for each week, and we hope to have lively discussion on each topic. So this is supposed to include teachers from any participating country, or perhaps even others if they join along the way. So we hope to have teachers from France, Poland, Sweden, Italy,
Finland,
yes,
Brazil,
or
USA,
right, maybe from
Cameroon,
Coventry.
Japan.
We'd like to have as many as possible.
Okay.
And however, I have suggestions for these topics, and we worked on them, and we also agreed that there needs to be a moderator, or even perhaps two, in this community, who will
hundreds of them,
or maybe hundreds of them. But
Yes.
but we need to assign, I think, formal roles for moderators. If nobody else wants to step out, sort of, and take the floor, then the moderator will. Yeah. So we need somebody like that, or perhaps even two people. So we need to make sure that we have people for these discussions on a particular week. However, when I think about the scenario, I think this idea for a scenario is a very good one. When I'm thinking about what will happen really, I see a number of gaps in it. So, for example, teachers join the community. They introduce themselves. They make some information about themselves public. We set some tasks for discussion tasks. They may post something or not. Some people will comment, others will not. And I think, to make it more dynamic, I suggest that we have a synchronous discussion, perhaps, too, apart from what will be going on in this asynchronous community. So Google is not good for that, the Google Plus community, because there's no such options as far as I know. So perhaps we could set a particular date for a synchronous. I'm not sure if it's Hangout because it's got limited sort of capacity. So perhaps maybe a Facebook group where people could meet online synchronously, and on a particular day, let's say Wednesday, 7 p.m., they could discuss some of the issues raised in the community synchronously. And then they could also post the reflections in the community again. So what do you think about such a scenario? Shall we just stick with asynchronous Google Plus community?
I certainly think that adding the synchronous to the mix gets you more traction. Because once when people see people and realize that they are real people out there, there's all sorts of additional connections that are forged. I wonder whether we can perhaps learn something from the global classroom community that I'm a moderator of, where we use my online classroom both at the beginning and the end of the year as a sort of meet up and launch, and then a review and celebration of the year's activities. That has the advantage as well of then producing an MP4 that can be edited and sorted and placed and used to disseminate the activities and talk about it. I guess Simon probably had guessed already that I was going to say, yeah, this Hangouts thing, it's all very well, but it has limitations. And that's because most of my work is around e-learning these days and around, I'm a learning technologist as well as a language teacher. So I definitely think, having something that is formal and captures what's going on is helpful. That doesn't stop the informal, and I would imagine the Hangouts and the various Skype chats and things will happen during the course of the year if things go to plan. The global classroom has somebody who archives the chat, so we mentor a chat every month. Simon's got some connections as well with CL MOOC by the looks of things as well. There might be something that comes out there. So it all sounds good, and it all sounds exciting and interesting. I know in the there are some teacher trainers who are going to get involved as well with the EWC, we call it, which is the French the Clermont-Warwick exchange. So we can sort of make that viewable and visible. I think once you start to go sort of public facing, it's really nice for people to be able to catch up on the history of it. So one of the things that Global Classroom does is they have an annual blog. Actually, Michael resets it every year, and so you can go back in the history. You can look at how the chats developed and where people started. So they archive the chats, but they also have on their wiki page. There's a shared blog, and people put posts up to let the others know how their project's coming along. So sort of thinking about how you frame it and how you make that community not a fractioned sort of odd grouping, but a real feeling of everybody coming together and presenting something holistic, which is, as we know from this sort of thing, is quite difficult because actually it's very human, isn't it? So there are bits and pieces. There's stuff that goes wrong. There are false starts. There are restarts. There are ideas that get jettisoned. It's messy, but that's why it's so fun, and that's why it's good, because it's messy. It reflects the way humans work together. But making something coherent out of that an outsider can look at critically and feel that I understand what's going on is actually quite important, especially for the teacher education community, I think. So they don't feel that this is just random acts of conversations. That's my take on it, I think, but I would absolutely support what you're doing and really excited by it.
Anybody else?
Simon's gone quiet. That's worrying.
Harry?
I'm a real fan of messy.
Yeah, me too.
And messy is impossible, from my experience, to top-down create. One of my biggest problems that I have with MOOCs in general is that they are more like courses, and that they are cosseted and straitjacketed, And I mean, sure, I want a surgeon to have had that kind of training, you know, but I also want that surgeon to be able to improvise on my heart when they look at it. I don't want them to treat it like a heart that they studied in a closed curriculum. That's where experience comes in. And the last 2 years, last 2 summers, I've been a facilitator on the CL MOOC community, and what we've done there is try to create messy by not trying to create messy. You know, we've what we've done is we've created the bare minimum framework that we thought would be enough to play in, and then we start doing it. But you know, like one week we would do something on hacking, and it'd be very general, and then the people themselves, of course, this is a bunch of teachers mostly, but they would refine and define what that actually meant. And sometimes these went on to wild tangents, and they're extremely messy, and sometimes they were very locked down. Those were the least successful ones. So you know, the tools that we have, like we were talking about asynchronous a minute ago, we've got things like Twitter chats that are basically asynchronous, and probably the most messy tool imaginable, especially when you begin to get large numbers of people on them. But you know, that's only the beginning of that. You know, oftentimes when we had Twitter chats, every time sometimes several people would say, take Storify and make it a little more cogent, try to curate it. So there's that, you know, Martian's talking about having facilitators. Eventually, you really want the model of every single person possible being a facilitator, because that's where the real power comes from, people connecting to each other. The rest of it, if you have a framework that is not too much, not too locked down, not too tight, I think, this is just from my own experience, and I might be totally wrong about this, but I think if you have just as, and it's a really dicey business, you know, the closer it gets to becoming a course for me, the more I want to abandon ship, and that's a fact for me. I just can't take it. You know, I'm just not gonna take it. I'm not gonna do it, or I'll find what I need and then I'll skedaddle. Which should be one of the attitudes you have with Clavier, is that, you know, you get what you want, and then you go, and you accept that. You know, you don't just, you know, they reciprocate it for a little bit, and they've built a little bit of a bridge, and then they're gone. They'll come back, or they'll just watch you from a distance and poke fun at you. You know? So, I mean, it's I love this discussion, and I love the idea of creating something, but it's got to have some DNA, and it's got to, you know, it can't just be determined by its DNA, right? Or it's gonna, I'm not going to say it'll fail, because, you know, it might take the DNA might mutate and it might take its own course, but you know, there are groups that have done this. I mentioned in the chat on the side about KQED's Do Now. That's where I learned one of the most fun things I do all year, these multimodal tool called Ziga. I learned it from them, and one of the things they do is this kind of reminds me of Do Now, because what they're trying to do is bring students together using social media, Twitter mostly, but others as well, and they have like they'll have like a weekly topic for discussion, and they'll give you some things that you can do if you want to with students, and then they just turn it loose, and then they start working on the next week while everybody else is fiddling around with what's going on with that week. So I mean, it's a good model, I think, and I go back to it all the time because nobody's telling me I have to do it. And I've gotten a lot of good ideas for teaching from it and a lot of good tools. So I think, the idea is to be useful. I know that's exactly what you're talking about, is to be useful. So that's my palaver on that, messy palaver.
I fully agree with that. I fully agree with everything you're saying there, really, actually. And it's very similar to Global Classroom. Global Classroom is a network primarily of primary teachers across the world. But the two founders of that essentially sort of stumbled over the fact that if you have conversations through Twitter and hashtag them, people will join in, and then people suggest projects. So there's a very loose framework for this that is essentially, look, we're all teachers, and we might like to do some projects, and people come forward and suggest themselves as projects. Suggest projects, they tweet and share them. People decide if they're going to have a go and join in, and people typically lurk maybe for a year or so and watch what happens in a project, and then the following year they might say, yeah, I think I could do that, or I would lead something similar, and then get more involved. And it's an organic growth, which looking around me at a garden, I've got a lovely view here of a garden. As you look outside, that lasts. Plant seeds, let it grow, and that's really what it's all about. But I'm also very aware of, I suppose, people outside looking in. Hello. Want to be able to understand.
Say hello to everybody. This is Andrew.
Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
How is everyone?
We're good. We're good.
Nice. Bring your class in here. We can then continue working.
There's kind of a need, certainly for this in the environment I work in, a need to justify your time and your use of your time, and so making something visible, transparent, and to an extent ordered from the outside for those who are not participating but who are perhaps looking on interested, helps to give the project more meaning. So I absolutely agree. And those people take very, very little interest in what's going on day to day in the actual sort of organic creation process. They want to know that it's real and it's doing something. So there's also a sort of communication exercise that goes around it, that sort of wraps around it, that attempts to make sense of this. And I think we perhaps have to think about that as well. I've certainly participated in several CMOOCs these days, and they've all got an element of structure there, at least from the outside. So you can, there's something that communicates who we are and what we're doing. Yeah. Just at that very superficial level, really.
At the very least, there's going to be, there may be some sort of manifesto or sort of, values and principles, such of things like we had with CLMOOC based on Mimi Ito's research. I mean, it's not gospel, it's just a starting place. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's all very interesting what you're saying, and I just realised that such communities must bring something, or some kind of extra value, which is different than normal class, and so that's one a part of the attraction of such communities, that there's more freedom, and that's great about it. I think like in any community, like if we take a dance hall, there's got to be someone who starts it.
Yeah, well, nothing happens. Yeah.
Or for the first person to step out, and then others will join, because until some point everybody will be leaning against the walls, but they need this spark, some kind of trigger, and usually other people are triggers. So just to make sure that everything's going, we need someone to initiate activities, discussions, and stuff.
That analogy is exactly the analogy that our students gave me when we first started. I don't know if you remember this, Simon, when we first started talking to them about the virtual exchange. They said, we feel like we're the people standing around the edge of the disco floor, and we need you to come along and encourage us to get involved.
Well,
so there's that, and a global classroom certainly has different categories, if you like, of animators. So as a moderator, I pop in every probably 6 months, 4, 5, 6 months. So I don't, I'm not there constantly, and they don't need me. Everything goes on without me, and that's fine. But I pop in and do what I can, and I contribute what I can.
I'd like to say something about that, because where I'm working, in my context, things are taking extraordinary sort of development. That's to say that the students are beginning to understand, and the students are beginning to understand, and now the teachers, who were very, very resistant before, are now coming to teach with me, and they go off very excitedly, and they go off and say, oh yeah, that's really great, I'm going to do that. And I think that, that they've suddenly understood something very simple, which is the question of space. And the space is vast. Even in yourself, it's vast.
Yeah.
And the question is, how does one find one element within oneself and connect that with somebody else in some other context? And for me, the sort of revolution in my head came when I was speaking with Teresa or David in Warwick, and we were looking at their Moodle. Because our problem was we had something like 1,000 students on a Moodle, and with 1,000 profiles, and the question is, how do you get these kids who don't want to waste their time to meet somebody who actually they would have something in common with? Because with Martian students, the research that we did often says the same thing. Well, I didn't have any affinity with him, therefore I just did what I was told to do, but it didn't go any further.
Yeah.
And so the question is, how do we identify in the quickest possible way the likelihood of these people getting on, and the likelihood of them lurking in a place where they're actually going to find things which are interesting for them? So, as a result of that conversation that we had with Teresa and David, we then discovered that within the Moodle you could tag. You could search the tags. Well, of course, this went sort of connected with everything else that I was doing with CL MOOCs, with the tags that they had, and also the negotiation of the tags. And so now we have, we have a directory of tags which is emerging from the students themselves, from the teachers. And they actually define them. That's to say that they'll say, okay, Clavski means anybody interested in Clavier. So it's a network which is growing rhizomatically. Who's interested in winter sports? So if I post something on the net in a space where I think there are going to be other people who are involved in Clavier, they can find me. They can find me with that tag. And from the tag then emerges a community. So this is what seems to be happening all the time. The conversation I had with Marita yesterday, she said, well, I've got 100 teenagers, and I don't know how quite we're going to connect them. Well, in the space of about 2 minutes, Thomas Savino then said to me, well, I have 90 teenagers, and then we have other people who have another bunch of teenagers, and then so it goes. So it's really a question of having a conversation with somebody, saying, well, that could interest other people. So locally in Clermont-Ferrand, we have something like 200 foreign students who I met and said, well, who's interested in rugby, who's interested in football, who's interested in coming to be my babysitter, etc., etc. And then we actually start discovering who are the hubs, who are the people that are actually going to enable these kids to go off and play football, play rugby, etc., on a physical level. But that worked on a global level as well, because that's how Teresa and I met That's how Martin and I met. That's how Terry and I met, because we found each other in a space of affinity, which was a hashtag or a blog or a conference. So for the kids who are in a classroom, a sort of normal classroom, they don't know how to go from there, what's inside them, to actually live outside in the world, in their sort of what they call their active life. They can't find the connection. And now what I've discovered is that they understand this because they use Facebook all the time, but they don't know how to network, and they don't know what their value is, and they don't know that they can actually live and realize their dreams. So gradually, we have people around the world who are demonstrating that yes, you can actually do what you want to do in the world. That's to say that you can find somebody who you like, and perhaps if you can find the finance, you can go and visit that person and have a picnic. And that's real. And we have more and more examples of that. So we are examples. Teresa, her teachers came to Clermont-Ferrand, and they went to the top of the Puy de Dôme, the mountain. Martin came to Clermont-Ferrand, and we swam in a lake. Well, that's because we found a means to actually do what we wanted to do. So if we can find that, then we simply have to model that. It's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science. I was waiting for that. Yeah. It's getting easier to some extent in that, as you say, we've had a few years sort of trying these things out. I think it's perhaps a little bit trickier for people with people whose charges are under 18, which is why I think Global Classroom, has managed that really well, because there are huge problems about data protection and what could happen to under 18s who are bumping into people left, right, and centre and being encouraged to reveal things about themselves. So I think that's perhaps more problematic. I mean, we haven't had to worry about that, and I'm grateful for that. But yeah, tags, especially those that are created by the community. If nothing else, I know that all our French learners will know what a mot dièse is within the first week. So yeah, there's
Terry,
those sort of advantages.
Could you tell them the story of MDR?
Oh, MDR.
Well, it has, one of the best things that's come over the last year for me is just what you all are talking about interculturally, and kind of the exposing of blind spots that I have, most Americans have, really, honestly, most people have, when they develop naturally their own social biases and their own language, from their own languages, their own ideas, their own concepts. And one of the first ones I discovered was the non-universality of memes. And meme generation is kind of an Anglo, even American-centric, I thought, idea. And of course, the memes that I laughed at and understood were ones that came from my own culture. And then I started realizing there's a whole group of people who have their own memes. Every culture develops their own memes. Maybe the idea started somewhere here, but it's definitely been taken up everywhere else. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, the stupid things, is LOL, laughing out loud, right? It's just it's kind of it's just shorthand, but it's a shorthand that is situated in a particular language. And I hadn't even thought about it being, well, what's the equivalent of LOL in French? It's MDR. and I mean, that's a little thing, but what it does is it profoundly exposes cultural blind spots. Mm. And it's like to me, it's like the analogy of the check valve in plumbing. There are certain areas in plumbing where you don't want that fluid to come back, right? You want it to go one way and you want it to keep going that way. And there's I think for me there's a social, cultural, intellectual equivalent to that of a check valve, and that was it for me. And it just led to other things, like we had a wonderful birthday party for Mahabali in Egypt, and I discovered the wonders of Egyptian commercials, which are hilarious. I mean, you can go on, you can become a cultural citizen anywhere thanks to YouTube. So I found these beautiful commercials for Panda Dairy. And the panda in these commercials is mean as hell. He's a mean panda, and if you don't buy his stuff, he will trash you. So I watched maybe half a dozen of those, and I got the idea to include that in a birthday message to Maha, and I found an Egyptian birthday song. You know, I did not know there were Egyptian birthday songs. I mean, obviously there are birthday songs in every language. And so that's, I mean, it just keeps on going. You know, there's check valve after check valve after check valve until you look back and say, where the hell am I? You know? So, I mean, what Simon, this is a long story that has to do with cultural intercultural activity that is supposed to be one of the values, I think, one of the core values of. That should be in a manifesto. I mean, it should be a manifesto, folks. It's just make one. It could be.
I love the idea of that. And the discoverability of one of the first things that I found out. My husband, 15 years ago, for my birthday, bought me a modem. So up until that point, I'd only used computers as word processors. Brilliant ways of making worksheets for my class, and I was an early adopter of computers, and in classrooms, but I'd not had a modem. And the only thing I'd ever thought of, when it came to thinking about the internet, was this is a scary place, and there are viruses and stuff, and I don't have the technical ability to manage that, and I don't want that. My kids were small at that stage. In fact, it must be more than 15 years ago. My life has gone too fast. And I didn't want this coming into our lives, but he said, look, you'll find some really good stuff. The children are going to grow up with this, and we ought to do it. So he connected a modem. Straight away, my computer got a virus, and I stayed up overnight for about 3 nights fixing my computer because I was so worried that something we'd spent a lot of money on at a time when I wasn't working and the children were little was broken. And I learned how to fix a computer. Basically, having stayed up all night and worked out that actually was a power problem with the computer, it wasn't a virus. So it was a kind of experiential learning journey that I went on all those years ago. But one of the first things I started to realize as I started to find my way around the internet was that actually this was a great way for me, when I got little children at home, to keep in touch with my French and find out how the language was evolving and what was changing, and reconnect. So it kind of became for me the connection. And since then I've become positively evangelical about it. But I'm not surprised, or I'm no longer surprised when students who are actually very tech savvy, or using social networks all the time and connecting, have never actually thought to use that in the language they're learning. Even students who are regular Facebook users, if I share with them a Facebook site for learning language, they go, oh, I never thought of that. Because they use it for other purposes. They haven't extrapolated from that they can connect and they can write 6-word stories using, there's a little Twitter 6 mots, Histoire en 6 mots, it's called, story in 6 words. Mm-hmm. A little Twitter meme that goes on where you try and write a story in 6 words. And that's great for beginners and learners in a language. You've got 6 words to work for. Give me 6 words in French that will get somebody thinking. Write a short sentence that's a starter for a story. So that's very much become now part of my teaching practice, sort of showing them how to use that connectivity and computer-mediated communication to increase their language learning and their intercultural skills. And French as a language is great because it's so philosophical. It's great for writing short stories, in communicating big ideas in just 6 words. I guess German must be even better, actually, because you can have 6 really long words.
Yeah.
So Teresa, just in response to what you're saying there, I mean, I have a gift for you. Are you ready for this gift? I hope it comes across.
Ooh.
Okay. And here's a gift for you.
I don't know where to look.
Can you hear that? You can't hear it, can you?
No.
Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping it would come across. I mean, talking about a universal language, I was playing the sound of a modem.
Oh, I remember that well.
Everyone knows. That's
that one.
Yeah. And then you get the the little
I remember that.
the handshake and all that. But to me, that's there are universal languages, and I think hashtags like Simon's talking about. I think that is little things like 6-word stories, which are very popular here in the States. Or 6 image stories. I did a 6 meme story this summer at one point. So there are these units of interest, and that's what I think about. I think what we're doing here is to create interesting space with interesting people, and then let it go. Turn it loose.
That sounds fab. That sounds brilliant.
I think for my experience of this is that one always has to view the amputation that we're living. That is to say that I'm really pissed off that I can't be in UK with you, Teresa, because I can see your picture. You're looking at is it the Japanese garden?
Japanese garden out the window, yeah.
You're looking at the Japanese garden, and just down from Teresa's office is a place where you can buy sandwiches. And I'm bloody hungry. Because in my useless university, I don't have that. And in Marcin, are you at home, Marcin?
Yes, I'm at home.
Yeah, so Marcin has got this beautiful garden. And he has to meet his family.
No, I can't see the garden probably, but you can see some of the
You see now we are now discovering, the beauty of we don't have to sit in front of the same bloody image. We can look around. And Marcin, I have this story. Marcin this year. My God, it was this year. In June, I had a group of university teachers, and they all want to learn English. And it's completely madness. They're paying lots of money to sit in a room with one English person. And I'm very happy. I get paid. But I said to them, I will invite my friend Marcin and speak to you because that will give you a bit of variety. And I didn't know where Marcin was, and they didn't know. Marcin wasn't in Clermont-Ferrand because actually, when I told them, I promised. I said, "You're going to meet a mystery guest, and he's going to speak English with you." And they're, "Oh, this is marvelous." And then Marcin changed his dates of his journey to France, so he couldn't come. So I thought, well, I can't. So I have to invite him. So I sent a Twitter DM, and Marcin said, "Yeah, I can do that." So he did a hangout with my university teachers. He was in a supermarket in Lublin, in Poland, and they said, "Why is it that the image is a bit blurred?" I said, "Well, it's because he's in a supermarket and it's on PG." So I have this caption. He's doing his class. He's teaching my class of students in Clermont-Ferrand in a hangout, which is all being recorded, and he is in a supermarket. So that just demonstrates that we're stuck on these perhaps PCs, but I want my students to take your students shopping, Because then, you know, if you go around a supermarket, goodness, you're going to learn lots and lots of stuff. Like I go, you know, and this is escargot, and yes, French people eat that. Eat that.
Can I introduce you to Helen Keegan, who's tweeting about our hangout?
Oh, right, yeah.
Is she there? Let's invite her.
I know, she's a teaching fellow. She's a national teaching fellow, so she's in the UK somewhere. She's in Manchester.
Yes, Manchester.
Hi, Helen.
I went for a pub crawl with her, Teresa.
Seriously?
Yeah. Last week it was online with Maha. There was Maha and Helen, and there was Apostolos, who's a Greek in New York, and I can't remember who else it was. But we went on a pub crawl. That was my vision of it.
Well, you've managed to have a picnic where you've actually had no food, so I think that's a major problem. I know it's a virtual picnic, but you should at least have physical food.
Yeah, but you say that, Teresa, and actually that is really actually quite funny, because now when I actually am working on projects, this is my project, you know, like having fun with you. I've suddenly
Don't tell anybody it's fun; they'll cut it.
I suddenly realised that all my classes, let's just say Monday 10 to 4, etc., all my timetable is in fact freedom. So that's because I don't have my kids, and I don't have my wife who's telling me I should be doing the shopping, the cooking, etc. So when I'm in class, I can then invite you or anybody to actually have fun with other people who are learning English. And I can do that, like all the 169 Claremont Erasmus students, foreign students, they can come to our classes, because, you know, it's much better for them to learn English with people of their age than to bother with some 52-year-old sort of weird philosopher. You know, they'll go from them. And then I'll sort of say, well, yeah, well, you know, if you just talk about that, maybe professionally, that, you know, you have to learn other sort of skills. So then I step in. I am like the sort of mad conductor and judge.
But this is, you know, actually in terms of language teaching methodology, this era was trumpeted by those involved in computer-assisted language learning at least 10 years ago. This would happen.
Yeah.
And actually it has been hugely slow in happening, and even, you know, fairly recently we've got as far as sort of saying, wow, tandem email, aren't they marvelous? You know, isn't that great? And I'm thinking, no. This has been a long time coming, and it is hugely complex technically, and I understand that a lot better, you know, 5-6 years down the line than I did when I was first working on my masters and pointing out this very thing, that, you know, there's a hole in the way between the way we teach and the way students are experiencing the world. So yeah, it's good to see that we're catching up a bit.
That links into the research we did with Marcin on the student teachers. Marcin, do you want to speak about that? Do you remember the research that we did about teacher perception of telecollaboration?
All right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, of course, well, people are quite naturally influenced by the way that they were taught and their past experiences. And these past experiences related to how they were educated have little to do with technology and sort of more open forms of learning. These were these experiences of learning that students recounted were quite sort of I would say quite standard and conservative. So when they were confronted with this telecollaboration project, that was something quite new to them, but still there was it caused some kind of disequilibrium, to put it this way, and they were sort of confused. But they need to come to terms with that, sort of accommodate this new well, these ideas that the classroom doesn't have to look the way they are used to. But it will gradually come to them, and I think this was a useful experience for this collaboration opportunity. Was a useful experience to them. So as you said, Teresa, or Simon, you're just sort of planting seeds, or and well, it takes time, I suppose. Yeah.
I think, Marcin, what you're saying, what I'm experiencing at my end, is that, you know, when I first sort of started bashing my head against a wall, I realised that there was a wall.
Yeah.
That the wall wasn't very friendly, and started bashing me on the head. So then I sort of discovered the joy of doing this in secret. And the problem with doing it in secret is that then people who are in the space with you, then they're really annoying. They start speaking about it to other people. And so doing it in secret is actually the best form of marketing. It's like all this pop star thing. If you do it in secret and you don't tell anybody, then there's a buzz which is created, which is a buzz of mystery. And there was a buzz of mystery, and then people, sort of teachers started saying, "Can I come to your classroom?" And I used to say, "Yeah, okay." And it went on, and now it's what's happening is that there is a sort of emergence of totally unpredictable behaviour of students who, after like 4 or 5 years of the culture growing, they're realising that they can actually be free. So I have students who are, hello Marita.
Hi there.
Who are blogging completely unusually. They wouldn't have done that before. And they're generally making me coffee. And that's I'm really happy about, because I like drinking coffee, and when I'm on a hangout, like with you, Teresa, I hang out. BB Collaborate on Wednesday. I was in my class, I was teaching, I was having a meeting, great meeting with our friends in Warwick and the friends in Camelfell, and the students were making me coffee, and that was in my class. I was really happy.
I think you should be really guarded about how much fun you admit to having, you know.
I don't think so. It's too late now.
It's lovely to see Marita. The last time we met, was in Holland.
That's right.
In Groningen. Groningen.
We're very jealous. Are we, Marcin?
Yes, we are.
It was lovely. It was a beautiful place to be.
Was.
Definitely on my list of places I'd like to work at.
At this conference in Krakow, I met Sake Yeager, the conference organizer, and actually in his talk he mentioned Teresa. And
oh dear.
Marcin,
I hope it was good.
it's good.
Marcin, if you do a keynote, do they pay?
For what?
If you are invited to do a keynote at a conference, do the people who organise the conference pay?
No.
No? Do they not pay for you to go there if you're doing a keynote?
No.
You have to pay?
If you're lucky,
It must
somebody
be a
will cover
rubbish
your travel
conference.
expenses.
Right, exactly. So if they cover our travel expenses, that means we have to start doing keynotes. Because we couldn't go, because we hadn't got any university, had money.
Yeah.
Terry needs to get a fresh cup of coffee, or actually some of us need to eat. If we've not had lunch and we're doing something. And it's some ridiculous time of the morning where Terry is in the Midwest somewhere. I don't know.
No. I'm a Viking in the morning.
Okay.
I've been up since 3:30 my time, so.
Oh my word.
I'm just perpetually sleepy looking.
Oh, dear. Can you explain, Terry, where you are? Because Marita is in Finland. No.
Okay.
She doesn't know where you are.
I'm in Kentucky. I don't know if you've ever heard of Kentucky.
I have, yes.
Well, I could, if you came here, I could take you on a tour of the longest cave system in the world, Mammoth
Cave
Cave.
system? Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
I could take you on what's called the Bourbon Tour, which is a series of bourbon distilleries that have open houses, and you can go and sample the wares. And then, if it's a certain time of year, I could take you to either Churchill Downs, where they do the Kentucky Derby, or Keeneland Racetrack, which is actually the most beautiful racetrack I've ever been to. And that's just for starters.
Okay.
And what we heard somewhere in the background were the famous Kentucky chickens.
Oh yes, of course, the feral Kentucky chickens, our famous Kentucky feral chickens, which there's a great story behind it. I won't burden you all with it, but around here we call them.
Yes, now you've said it, you have to burden us with a story now.
Well,
I want
these
to know the story.
the chickens are technically known as yard birds. I don't even know what the breed is. They're small and they're black, and they're relentlessly surviving everything that we can throw at them. And I got them because a neighbor of mine down the road, in another holler, as we say here, he had thrown them in a trash can. These were literally throwaway chickens. They were in a trash can, and I said, "Hey, you're throwing away perfectly good chicken. Aren't you going to eat those?" And he said, "No, you can have them." So I took home a couple of chickens and a rooster in a bag, or as they say here, a poke. A poke. And so I took them home and I released them, and they're just survivors. So that's what you hear in the background are the rooster survivors and their progeny.
I think we're survivors too.
I kind of think that they're kind of hateful, though. Is that what you're saying, Simon? Is that
no, I'm not.
Survivors
hateful.
like
I'm
us
loving.
is just kind of hateful. That's how we survive.
I'm a loving feral chicken.
So you say. But,
right, Marita, it's your turn. If we go to where you are, what do we get if we go there? Because Terry can give us feral chickens and bourbon. And
Okay.
cave.
How about raw fish?
Raw fish.
Raw fish? Tempting? With vodka, of course.
Oh, that's like Poland. Vodka.
Yeah. That's what we are famous for. Salmon and vodka.
that's a nice combination.
That's a nice combination, yes.
Can we see out of your window? Because we can see you. That's lovely. Can you move the webcam?
I can. Hold on. Just a minute. There we are. We actually had the first snow a couple of days ago, but it didn't stay. Can you see anything now?
Beautiful car park.
Place, but that's how it looks like.
Okay.
Nice nature. Lots of trees.
Yes. Yeah. So we are actually in a forest. We have forest everywhere around here. No caves, I'm afraid, but forest, sea, and that's it.
Forests are good.
And now I can't attach the camera anymore.
I've just had exactly the same problem, Marita. My camera is now balanced.
Good. And Marcin, can you sell coming to Krakow to us, please?
Sorry, say again.
Could you be the tourist? We would like to come to Krakow. So what would you bring us to see?
Of course, you're very welcome. What could you see? Well, a lot of places. The main market square is a beautiful place to go, and there are there is one cave sort of. It's called the Dragon's Lair. Well, because one of the legends in Krakow about Krakow is about a dragon, and it's underneath the castle. There's this kind of legendary dragon's lair, and you can peek inside, and there's this sculpture of the dragon. So you can see that, and what else? Well, there are places in Krakow, and not too far away from Krakow. There's you can see there's the famous Schindler's factory. People go to see, and other sad places not far away from Krakow, like the concentration camp Auschwitz, which is about 60-80 kilometers from Krakow. And well, there's lots of pubs. So that's another attraction. Lots of British tourists having stag nights there. Yeah, so
they have very good beer, much in Ireland. Very good beer, and it's very cheap.
Yeah, yes, it is, especially if you have if there's some kind of promotion. Oh yeah, by the way, I have to send you the photos.
But they don't have salt and vinegar crisps.
Excuse me?
They don't have salt and vinegar crisps.
Oh no, we haven't. Which is very sad. Which is something about Britain. Salt and vinegar.
Teresa, what do you get if you come to Coventry?
I'd post some salt and vinegar crisps over, but I don't think they'll be edible by the time they get to you.
Yeah.
What do we get in Coventry?
Warwick, well, yeah, Warwickshire. We're right in the middle of the UK. So Warwick University is in Coventry, as Simon points out, but we don't like to admit it.
Sorry. I've let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah. Coventry actually is a city of reconciliation. There's a verb in English which is to coventrate, which means to obliterate a city. And that's what happened to Coventry in the Second World War, as it happened to many, many cities across the world. So Coventry has a new-ish cathedral, as well as the old ruins of a bombed cathedral. And reconciliation and peace is actually central to Coventry's civic identity. It was a very busy and sort of motor industry dominated city too, but that has changed because Peugeot have returned to France, and other things have changed. The economic life of Coventry has gone through ups and downs, but it was also the originator of the two-tone movement. So music, those of you who know the Specials and bands like that would know that they come from Coventry. I'm a Warwickshire girl at heart. I actually came from nearer to Birmingham. Birmingham is obviously a major, second city of the UK, so that's very well known probably to most of you. But I live just outside Warwick, and Warwick has a fabulous castle and lots of interesting things to visit. Obviously Stratford and the home of the Bard, all within a sort of 20-mile radius. So we have lots of tourist life as well as industry. Yeah, we're a friendly sort of folk, really. Quite a busy area. We don't have much in terms of the open wild spaces like you have in Finland, really. Locally to us. We have some, but we're also about as far as you can get from the sea in the UK. Because we're bang in the middle of the widest part of the UK. But we are very central, very easy to get to. Birmingham has an airport, so we're very easy to reach. You'd be very welcome, any of you, should you wish to come to Warwick.
Well, that's the plan, basically. We have to work out how do we get to Kentucky, Finland, Poland, the UK,
simultaneously,
and France.
Not necessarily, and France. Not necessarily simultaneously, because that would be a swap. There'll be sort of like indigestion. So we have to find a way of doing that, and that's my plan. So basically,
that's a good plan.
I want to go and I want to go and chase feral chickens in Kentucky, and go down caves and drink bourbon.
You just have to, Simon, when you catch the chickens, You have to take them. Well, you have to take them with you. Your own rule. You don't get excited unless you take the chickens with you.
All right. Well, I'm probably a very bad chicken catcher.
I don't care. Somebody's got to catch them.
So basically, our manifesto is related to enabling people to actually meet up and understand that their preconceptions of like other places in the world are perhaps not very useful, and to try and change the tags that are being given to people by other people and make them realize that perhaps those tags you can choose. Clavier is something that one chooses. There's no obligation, and it's the same with activity within that. And I think that for me is the most important thing about Clavier. If we're going to talk about manifesto, it's a space in which
I'm going to test this, Simon. I'm going to test this in my classes because I've got a kind of a forlorn Twitter space in my 3 classes right now, and I can tell them all I want to about how much I use Twitter as a professional learning space, and it doesn't matter. It does not matter. It is, it doesn't connect. That does not connect with them. But if I tell them, hey, how would you like to talk with somebody from another country? Because our university makes this big marketing appeal about being a university with international reach, which is ridiculous because we're a regional university in Kentucky. But honestly, something like this would be international reach of the best kind. Not quite sure what kind, but I think it's the best kind. So I'm going to be using these hashtags. I'm going to say, look at these hashtags. Want to connect up? Put the food down where the goats can get to it, right?
That's the thing, isn't it? It's being in the space that they being available in lots of spaces so that they can connect the way they want to connect. I now have 2, 20-year-old, 20 and 22-year-old kids. I know that they look at my use of technology and go, boring. If Mom does it, no way. They use their own spaces. They have their own ways of accessing stuff. And that's fine, but I do think the curation element is important as well for those people involved in disseminating, sharing, spreading the word. Storyfy, whatever, by any means, pulling this together and presenting a narrative that people understand.
I think that's where the research comes in, because my objective with this, if we go back to the research aspect of it. Well, I've always been a researcher that nobody else recognised. And in order for me to get a bit in my university, I had to be recognised as a researcher. So now that happened, that enabled me to go to Eurocool. So that gave me the ticket. So it's a conference, Terry. They said if you go to you get something accepted at Eurocool, then you'll be associate member of the research laboratory. And I thought, right, I can get to go to Sweden. So that's where I got to meet Marcin, and that's where I then learned from Marita, who had this fantastic presentation, which is still in my head, about nexus analysis. Yeah. Okay, and so that's where things started connecting, because I really only wanted to go to Sweden. For me, my plan was, how do I get to be able to travel around the world, meeting people I'm interested in, without any money? That was my starting point. And so the university wasn't going to give me money, more than I had already, because I'm just a teacher. And I thought, well, maybe I can do research. And so I did. And then that's one thing led to another. And once they let the cat out of the bag, then, well, basically I'm speaking to you guys. And now, the research, now I've got loads of people who can teach me how to do research properly, like what you do.
Like what?
No one can tell you what research is. You have to see it for yourself.
Yeah, that's a secret they're trying to keep.
Matrix phrase, something. Yeah, that was about Matrix originally.
So yeah, coming back to what Teresa was saying, it's a question of curation. I think that's coming back to what the discussion we had yesterday. Was it yesterday, Marita? I can't remember. Marita?
Yesterday, I think so. Yes.
Was it yesterday?
I think it was.
Remember. Right, anyway. So we had a discussion with Lena and Marita, and I had no idea what was going to go on. And so we're setting up, Marita, a space teenagers. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Because that will remind me so that I say things right.
Okay, so we, as Simon said, we met yesterday, and we planned that we would form a playground for teenagers. I'm working with teenagers at the moment, teaching them English and German, in fact, as well. And what did we think about? Now I can't remember anything, Simon.
We just have to watch the video, Marita.
Yes.
Okay,
anyway.
I won't tax your memory. Anyway, what I remember, I'll tell you. We said you've got about 100 odd Finnish teenagers. Is that
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Okay, and we don't know what they're interested in, so we're going to try and let them find out. And then they're going to meet up with other people. Some of my students who are making tutorials on YouTube that can be used for them.
Hmm.
And then there were other people who started saying they'd be interested. So there were people like Thomas Savino, who has 90 teenagers in Poland. And then we can do sort of like teaching observation. So maybe Chris and I can't remember, David's Swedish lot, or Marcin's, your lot, or our lot, can go and do observation about like teaching teenagers from different countries. Well, teaching, I mean, that's a big word, but do you know what I mean? Trying to work out how to learn. And then we get more people involved in that. So that's ongoing. So that's starting with the Google Plus space, initially. That was the plan. And then, as far as Warwick is concerned, so we, just to fill you in, Terry and Marisa and March, so can you explain the tagging, Teresa, in Warwick?
Well, the tagging in Warwick, as far as I'm concerned, there are two sort of scenarios. One is within our Moodle environment, and so that's, you know, we've got a tagging list which you've got in a Google Doc, which can be openly shared, or we can, you know, represent it if we want to, and a way of producing those tags. And then I transfer some of those into our Moodle environment as well. So there's a little tag cloud that people can use to add those hashtags to their profiles to help make them more discoverable within the Moodle environment. Outside of that, I'm assuming those hashtags are also being attached elsewhere, and we're just using Google. We do have a Google Apps for Education account that we use for our staff. We would not particularly, we certainly don't ask students to create accounts in particular technologies where they don't exist already. So our students don't have, they probably have their own personal Google accounts, but it's up to them whether they want to use them for a work setting. I think in the US and certainly in the UK, we get very concerned about things like that.
That's what you just said, Teresa, is really important, because Clavier exists inside and outside any space. That's to say that if you use the hashtags inside an institutional space, like the Moodle of Warwick, then you can search people who use those tags to find affinity. So that's the first point. But as we have already, sort of by accident, when we came together, Teresa is in charge of her e-learning space, the Moodle, and I'm just this anarchist. So I use whatever, and then we put the two together, and that made really the basis of Clavier. That's to say that you use whatever spaces you like, dependent on your local context. You encourage students and other people to meet up in those spaces where they can find people who they would like to meet. And so it goes. So basically, if you have people interested in surfing, then we put in surfing, and if you have people with exactly, Terry, they don't slop over, they exist as a tag. So if I say Hallelujah. Well, Hallelujah can exist in Moodle, and it can exist in Twitter, and it can exist in this precise moment. So Hallelujah is not a prisoner of Moodle, like a tag. And this comes back to the discussion we had with Keith Hammond, which is about angels. So this is probably a bit obscure to you, but Keith Hammond is a friend of ours in Florida, and we met him, well, I met him, I don't know about Terry, maybe you knew him before, in a MOOC called Rhizo 14. I say that short because there's an official name, but we call it Rhizo 14. And Keith is investigating in use of prepositions in what do they call it? Orthoethnography, which is a beautiful word, which I think is very complicated, and which is basically stories that people write, and he's just investigating prepositions. And this is fascinating for me because I'm interested in all these sort of elements which give you space to express yourself. The preposition is very much dependent on your context, and for me, Clavier is very much dependent on your context, because I have no idea what it's like to be a teacher and to be Terry in Kentucky, and he's much more expert than I am. Because I mean, looking after chickens, I'd be bloody lost. Even if they ran away, I wouldn't know what to do. So that comes back to angels, which is probably pretty obscure for this moment, but so that's what the discussion we had. So that's where I start off. Angels is going a bit fun.
Well, I think the idea behind that is one that connections are already there, and we are revealing them because we have all these. It may not have been in the past, but we have all these capacities in an affinity space, whatever, use, that amazingly connect us in ways that, I mean, the whole notion of 6 degrees of separation is based on the idea that we're already connected. We just don't know it. And I think that's what I love about this, is that it connects people who are already connected, they just don't know it. So if you sweep aside the detritus, get the leaves out of the way and say, oh, looky there. There it is.
I have to say goodbye at this point. I'm going to grab some lunch, and we'll be in touch. So it's great meeting you, and we'll discuss this teacher community in more detail soon, I hope, so that way this gathers final shape and we can start in the second week of October.
Yeah, I think, Martin, if I can just, before you rush off, I think the message that I have is less is more, and we start with something which is what we've just done. That's to say that people are curious about who are these other people, and they start asking questions like, could I see beyond your tag and see, what are you looking at? So that can be a picture of you out of your window. It could be a story about chickens. It could be about, this is the best place to get beer, etc., etc. So that's what really connects people. The rest of it is sort of, I learned a new word actually. What was it called? A concept. Third discourse? Third discourse. Do you know about?
Yes, Maha had that in her one of her posts recently.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday is the third discourse, as far as I remember. So.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Lunch is the third discourse. Bon appetit.
Bye, Martin. I've got to go as well, I'm afraid, but it's been brilliant meeting you, and I'm hoping we'll, things all sort of converse, coalesce as they do, as things get assimilated and we start to see what's emerging, and all looks very, very exciting. Great to meet you, Terry.
The 15th. Is it the 15th, the breakfast?
We have breakfast together on the 15th, yes. Yes, right, so I'm off to Italy on Sunday for a few days for Video for All meetings. So I'm back at the end of that week, and then I'll be focusing on how we get everything in place for the virtual breakfast.
Where are you going in Italy?
Perugia.
Where's that?
Sort of, it's pretty central actually. It's pretty central.
You could say ciao to Laura.
Yes. Well, I'm.
You say I'm closer to you now.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find there's even more people to
you know
to meet
what?
with.
Just before you go, Laura discovered, and I'm really happy about this, that their university has already a connection with our university, so that may be leverage for me to go to Italy and eat ice cream.
Not that it's all about the ice cream, of course.
I don't care about the rest.
Well, lovely to meet you. Take care, everybody.
See you, Teresa.
See you
Have a
later.
good day. Bye, Marita.
Bye,
Terry.
Teresa.
Bye-bye, Teresa.
Right. So we're down to the last three. It's like the end of the world.
The end of the world is here, yes. Kentucky will come.
As we know it.
Yes.
So Marita, do we need to talk business at all, or do we just talk about ice cream?
Ice cream and business together. I think that's a good combination.
All right.
Actually, I started with two groups. They started to write their introductions today, and they were really enthusiastic about the idea that they will meet other people, and somebody will actually take a look at their writings and talk to them about whatever. So.
I think it's important to stress the multimodality.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So that we don't just. What I love is scrapbooks. When students start producing scrapbooks, and it doesn't have to be digital; it can be anything, because we just use sort of the prosthetic to actually make it digital, but it can be any full object, any beautiful chicken leaf, whatever they bring. It's really important that we get away from this stuff of computers, because a lot of kids and a lot of people are quite rightly alienated by sitting in front of screens.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a great person, I can't remember her name, who works in Switzerland, who did a whole thing like make what Terry talked about, which is making things.
Okay.
And he did a conference in Clermont-Ferrand years ago about using creativity and ICT to amplify sculpture, model making, Lego, painting, whatever it was. Making breakfast. So I think that's really important. And the other aspect is to think really in terms of this business of this is an obstacle to us meeting up and going and having bourbon. So that's very frustrating. So we need to reduce that frustration the maximum, which means that when we turn up a place, I know that if I turn up in a picnic, in a hangout, the likelihood is that people will turn up. But in the morning, I was supposed to meet up with a friend of mine who couldn't come for whatever reason, and if it had been me, I might have done it again. And I think that for a lot of teachers, a lot of students, a lot of people, they invest, they have this dream of meeting up and going. So when they arrive and all they see is a black screen, then that kills their enthusiasm.
That's right.
Which is normal. It's basically you've been sold this dream and you get like blackness. So we have to work really on sort of lowering expectation, but raising expectation in terms of, look, if you're active and you're sharing that with other people in this space, and because we're working as the interface, the human interface between them, if you start, we're going to put this week with Clav T-shirt. So Clav T-shirt, Terry, is a thing which developed with, I can't remember, with Clarissa and Carla in Brazil, and Thomas in Poland, and because I love taking photos of T-shirts. So when I have some good T-shirts, I then take a photo of them, and from that we thought, well, let's do a design your own T-shirt competition. So that will be Clav T-shirt. You're going to make a T-shirt related to Clavier, or related to World or Life or whatever, and then we have a competition and we give them real prizes. Yeah. So that's one element, and another element is this business of gifting. I think that Clarissa, you know Clarissa, Terry, and Marisa, you've met her because we've been in a hangout together. So Clarissa, she's basically a Brazilian genius who shows the sort of, she goes beyond the digital aspect of it to actually really send people T-shirts. And for me, that is key, because when you have tangible, then that's what broke things here in Clermont-Ferrand. When we had 12 people from the UK who turned up in our space, then suddenly the teachers started saying, oh, well, taking it seriously. And the students then, it was just fantastic. So we have to view things in those terms, I think. It's how do we get to Kentucky? How do we Finland? How do we get all of these fantastic people together with Kevin and Dave Cormier and all the people to have a big party? Really, that's what I want. That's what I want. So if that means going to Michelin and saying, well, look, we can resolve your problems for integration of your families who get sent to different countries around the world, then I don't care. I'm fine with Michelin. Because they have human problems, everybody, and Michelin is a company, you know, like all these companies, they have their faults, but they do believe in experiential learning, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. To me, experiential learning is, and most of the people who study it seem to think it's 80%, 90% of value you get in learning is that way. To throw out the training, throw out the classroom. What do you learn on the job, with your friends and your social networks?
Exactly.
And that's it. That's the way that rolls.
So I think that we can perhaps, once we've sorted out our manifesto and everybody agrees what we're doing, then we actually go and find means to actually go to Kentucky, Finland, etc., and take as many people with us. That's my intention.
Mm.
So that means that you know, the more people have this tag which you attach to yourself. Already in the past, since 2011, Teresa can communicate much more than I can, because she has a role where she teaches less, so she can go to conferences.
Mm.
For researchers like yourself, Marita, it's the same thing. I can't, because I'm sort of, you know, grounded as a teacher. So my sort of, you know, frame of freedom from that point of view is lesser.
Mm.
So that's why it's so important. And I think that oh, God knows, I have no idea where it's going to end up. But all I know is that if I die now, I'm happy.
You don't die now. Come on.
I hope not, but I'm happy with that.
Mm.
Dying on Hangout, that might be that might go viral. give it a go, Simon. Come on.
I still intend doing a bit more. Sort of,
I call that one.
Eating ice cream in Italy. And the kids, what would they do? I've got I've got house insurance, but they would miss me.
That's what you say.
Oh God! Right, I go see the bullet arrive in the post. Oh well, whatever. Right, that's been really nice. Do we need to speak about anything else, or do we want to speak about anything else? Because I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, I've got to make coffee for my wife. She gets pretty cranky. Do that in the morning.
That's important, you know.
Extremely important. You are absolutely right, Marita.
Right,
Okay.
Marita, is there anything we need to talk about? I'll set up the community.
Right.
You basically, if you can communicate with me as regularly as possible in the simplest possible way, then I
Yeah.
know what's going on. Because that's
Okay.
the big problem. That's to say that the people in Clavier, it's taken time to actually get to a point where it's manageable to actually have a clue what people are doing.
Mm.
And
Is this-
that, yeah, go on, Terry.
Is this a G+ community that you're setting up?
Well, the answer is it exists in any space. It's just a question of finding a space where people.
Right.
So you
I
don't
mean,
have
just as a starter.
yeah.
I don't know. Just curious.
No, what I'm saying, well, in fact, the story of it is that it's in Google space that we're working. So Google Plus is a good place to actually break out students from this idea that Facebook is, and then from that they start doing blogs and stuff, and some of them are on Twitter. So I just basically started out where we were and then worked from there. And because Warwick were in a Moodle where we just infiltrated their Moodle with all our stuff. And that means that the students then crash out and go out into Facebook, they go wherever they like, and they do what they want. So for me, practically speaking as a teacher, the Google environment is the most practical way to work things out. Right. And then afterwards, you know, when we're really rich, then we'll invent a new something else.
Exactly. A
So
new
that's fine.
new federated system.
Exactly. So we're not there yet, but we will be if we actually put our sort of effort in it, because that's the next question, you know. Democracy and what do people do with our data and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. What I'm going to start with is just a whole mess of hashtags. And just saying, look, you're obviously not interested in my space here, but turn it into your space. I don't care. Right. You know, whatever.
Okay.
We'll see what happens there.
As far as that concerns, you just tweet me what's going on, and then what I'll do is I direct attention to where the traffic is.
Okay.
It's just basically, I said to the students, you know, because some of them are a bit skeptical about, which is healthy. I say, well, look, you know, when you start out on Twitter and you send your first tweet, you feel like you're completely stupid because you're just an egg and there's nobody there. Whereas when you're actually in a stream which has been provided for you, then you have nice people to help you, then you can sort of see that perhaps it's interesting for you, which is exactly what you're saying. So it's nothing to do with, is Twitter marvelous? It's to do with, can I meet people who I would like to communicate with, who are perhaps pretty and they're going to take me to drink bourbon in Kentucky. That's how we all think. Yes. You know, it's pretty basic. So the way I sell this to teachers is exactly the same way. That's to say that I say, well, you know, you're spending all this time correcting people's English. Do you not hate doing that? Or you're spending your life in front of a photocopier. Do you not hate doing that? Or et cetera, et cetera. So to some people who are not completely masochistic or weird, they can relate to that sort of message. And that's where to start, in my opinion. You start with helping them to do things better that they're doing already, so that they have to work less. And then starting a dialogue. So, for example, my colleague who's my sort of partner in crime here locally, it was the first year she could actually say, with her heart, I'm not going to correct your work. That was a big step for her. Yeah? And
Yeah.
But, you know, it's painful trying to what you've been so used to doing, put your heart into helping these kids in the way you think is the best way, and then to realise that perhaps it's not working anymore, or it never worked. You know, because we're looking for sort of reassurance. Because, you know, I put my heart into being a teacher, and I come to this space and I see kids who are just like dead. And I prefer them not to be dead, because I'm not, and I don't want to be. Despite any sort of suggestion that my death might go viral on YouTube.
Just think about it, okay?
I don't want to go to Algeria just now, okay? I think on the whole, I want to avoid mountains with people with masks who want to chop my head off.
Okay. All right.
All right, thanks. I think that's enough. I'm going to avoid any more messages about Algeria in case somebody's listening. Right, Marita.
Pleasure to meet you, Marita. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Simon.
Okay. It was really nice to meet you, Terry.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Marita. Thanks for
catching the chicken.
We mustn't count them before we...
Yeah. Bye.
See you, Marita.
Bye.
Have a lovely day.
You too.